What if I told you that everything you've been chasing, success, love, security, even happiness, is part of a game you forgot you were playing? That the suffering you experience, the pressure, the stress, the fear of not being enough, is all rooted in a simple misunderstanding. You think the game is real. But Alan Watts, the legendary philosopher who merged Eastern wisdom with Western insight, once said the most freeing truth you'll ever hear: life is just a game. And the reason you're suffering is because you're treating it like a test, a mission, a punishment. But it's not. It's a play. And just like a game, the only way to truly beat it is to realize it was never meant to be beaten in the first place.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Now listen carefully. This isn't some cliche about just having fun or not taking things seriously. This is about waking up on the deepest level to the truth that everything you identify with is temporary. Your job, your name, your reputation, your goals, their costumes, roles. You've put them on like a character in a game. And the moment you forget that, you become trapped. You start believing that your status matters more than your state of being, that your identity is fixed, that your failures are real. And that's when the game starts playing you. Watts used to say that the point of dancing is not to arrive at the final step. The point is to dance. But what do we do in life? We rush through the song. We try to get somewhere. We treat life like a ladder, always climbing, never arriving. We say, once I get this degree, then I'll be happy. Once I get this job, this partner, this recognition, then I'll be okay. But the second you arrive, the goalpost shifts, or the game resets, and you're back to chasing. So let me ask you something that might shake you. What if you've been playing someone else's game your entire life? What if the rules you live by were programmed into you by school, by society, by your parents, by fear? What if the scoreboard you're using, money, followers, achievements, isn't even measuring what really matters? Think about it. Who told you what success means? Who told you what kind of life is worth living? And more importantly, why did you believe it? Alan Watts didn't just challenge ideas, he flipped them inside out. He said that trying to control life, trying to master it, is like trying to grab water. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. But when you relax, when you flow, when you play, that's when the magic happens. That's when you realize that the game isn't about domination. It's about participation. You're not here to conquer life. You're here to experience it. But here's where it gets even deeper, because this isn't just a metaphor. Watts meant it literally. He believed that you are not a separate ego trapped in a bag of skin. You are the universe, playing a game of hide and seek with itself, pretending to be a person, pretending to be limited, pretending to forget just so you could remember, so you could wake up in the middle of the game and laugh. Oh, laugh at the absurdity, laugh at the beauty, laugh at the incredible, ridiculous mystery of it all. And if this sounds insane, stop and ask yourself, why do we take life so seriously when everything in it ends? Why do we act as if losing is the end of the world when we know that everyone loses eventually? That every empire crumbles, that every body dies, that every attachment, no matter how precious, will eventually be released. Could it be that the fear we feel is the fear of remembering the truth? Because if you truly saw that life is just a game, you'd stop clinging. You'd stop fighting reality. You'd stop trying to win and start learning how to play. You'd notice the patterns. You'd see the roles people are playing, the masks, the scripts. And instead of reacting, you'd start responding. Instead of performing, you'd start participating. And instead of surviving, you'd start living. But here's the twist. Beating the game doesn't mean avoiding pain. It doesn't mean escaping difficulty. In fact, the most powerful players are the ones who embrace every part of the game, even the dark levels, even the heartbreak, even the failure, because they know it's all part of the story. A story you're not just watching, you're writing. So how do you beat the game? You stop believing in the scoreboard. You stop measuring your worth by external metrics. You stop asking, am I enough? And start asking, am I awake? Are you present? Are you aware of the game you're in? Are you playing consciously, or are you being played? Most people are NPCs, non-playable characters running on autopilot. They react to life. They follow the script. They chase the next dopamine hit. They obey the rules without ever questioning who made them. That's not living. That's simulation. But once you wake up, once you realize the game is here for your growth, your joy, your awakening, then everything shifts. Even suffering becomes sacred. Even loss becomes teacher. Because now you're not just a character. You're a creator. Watts reminded us that the ego is just a role, a necessary illusion. But the danger comes when you forget it's an illusion. When you think you are the role, the mask, the story. That's when fear takes over. That's when you start protecting something that doesn't actually exist. That's when you become defensive, anxious, obsessed with control. But when you remember who you really are, then fear becomes play. Then conflict becomes dance. Then life becomes art. So ask yourself right now, what role are you playing? Are you the hero? The victim? The overachiever? The martyr? The rebel? The perfectionist? Who taught you to play that role, and what would happen if you let it go? What would happen if, even for a moment, you stopped trying to be anyone and just were? That's the moment you wake up in the game. That's the moment you realize that your life is not a problem to be solved, but a song to be sung, a painting to be painted, a game to be played. And the goal is not to win, it's to play so fully that even losing feels like part of the masterpiece. But here's the final twist. The game resets every moment. Every breath is a new round. That means no matter how many times you've failed, no matter how long you've been asleep, you can start again. Right now, you can choose to play differently. To stop performing and start dancing. To stop grinding and start flowing. To stop fearing and start awakening. And when you do, you'll see it everywhere. In the way the trees sway, the way laughter bubbles up, the way even sadness has its own rhythm. You'll feel the game playing through you. You'll see that you were never just the player. You were the playground, the creator, the consciousness behind it all. So how do you beat the game? You remember that you are the game. And when you know that when you really know it, you don't need to win anymore. You just need to play. Now that we've cracked the illusion, let's go deeper, because beating the game of life isn't about escaping from it. It's about playing it so well that you realize the separation between you and the game was never real to begin with. Alan Watts said the moment you wake up and see that you're not just in the universe but of it, something profound happens. You stop resisting the flow. You stop fighting the current. You stop trying to carve your name into water. And instead, you start flowing with it. You start dancing with life, not demanding that it go your way, but learning its rhythm, feeling its pulse, and merging with it so completely that even chaos becomes choreography. But here's what most people miss. They confuse the game with the grind. They've been told life is a competition, that they have to hustle harder, climb faster, outperform everyone. They think if they just work hard enough, they'll finally arrive. But Watts would say arrive where? At what point does a dancer stop to say, I've reached the final step? At what note does a musician say, this is the last one, now I'm successful? The moment you treat life like a destination, you've already lost the game. Because the game is not about getting somewhere. It's about being here. And this is where it gets mystical. Watts believed the core illusion is the belief in separation. That you are a separate you, struggling against a chaotic world. But what if that's not true? What if the same energy that moves the stars through galaxies is the same energy that moves your breath, your thoughts, your heartbeat? What if the entire universe is one great game of hide and seek, where the one becomes the many, forgets itself, and then remembers again through you? That's not just poetic. That's a radical shift in perspective. Because if it's true, then nothing is against you. There are no enemies, no external threats, only roles, only opportunities to awaken deeper. Even your pain, even your losses, even your failures. They're not glitches in the game. They're part of the design. They're how you grow, how you remember, how you wake up. So when you suffer, and don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this trying to show me? That one question can change the entire trajectory of your life. Because instead of resisting the game, you start learning from it. You become a conscious player. You start seeing patterns. You notice how everything is connected. How every time you let go of control, something better emerges. How every time you stop chasing, what you were chasing starts finding you. That's not magic. That's alignment. When you stop playing the ego's game of control and start playing the soul's game of trust, life becomes a mirror. It reflects you back to yourself. And the more real you become, the more real life becomes. The more you surrender to the present, the more power you actually have. Because now, you're not reacting, you're responding. You're not surviving, you're creating. Watts used to laugh at people who said, but I need to be realistic. And he would say, realistic according to what? What you call reality is just a shared hallucination. A set of rules agreed upon by people who forgot they were dreaming. But you don't have to stay in the dream. You can wake up. And when you do, you realize that the only rules that matter are the ones that align with love, awareness, and play. So what does that look like in practice? It means you stop trying to fix your life and start dancing with it. You stop trying to control people and start understanding them. You stop trying to reach the end and start savoring the moment. You bring curiosity into your suffering. You bring humor into your seriousness. You bring presence into your problems. And suddenly the game starts bending around you. Not because you hacked it, but because you harmonized with it. And here's the truth. You don't need to escape the game to beat it. You just need to see it clearly. See the roles you play. See the beliefs you've inherited. See the scripts you're following without question. And then rewrite them. Not with force, but with awareness, with compassion, with play. Because the game is not trying to defeat you. It's trying to wake you up. Every challenge is a riddle. Every heartbreak is a teacher. Every breakdown is a doorway. And when you stop trying to get over those moments and start learning from them, you become a different kind of player. Not the one who wins by outsmarting life, but the one who wins by becoming life itself. That's what Alan Watts meant when he said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself." You're not separate from the game. You are the game. And the moment you realize that, you stop needing to prove anything. You stop needing to chase anything. You just are. And that being, that effortless flow, is the highest form of playing. It's the difference between a musician stressing over every note and one who loses themselves in the music. Between a dancer counting every step and one who becomes the dance. Between a person surviving life and one who is being life. Which one are you? Which one do you want to be? Because here's the secret. When you really wake up, you don't need the game to end. You don't need to win. You just need to play fully, to love deeply, to create wildly, to laugh loudly, to cry honestly, to show up again and again with your heart open and your mind awake. That's the win. That's the enlightenment. That's the level beyond all levels. Not an escape from the world, but a total immersion in it, with no resistance, no egoic agenda, just presence, just play. So now we reach the final round, the part of the game where most people give up, not because they're weak, but because they've misunderstood what it means to win. You've come this far, peeled back the illusion, touched the deeper rhythm beneath your life. But here's the paradox Alan Watts knew better than most. Once you stop playing to win, you've already won. Once you stop taking the game seriously, you've begun to play it masterfully. And once you see that you were never separate from the game at all, you're finally free. Let's talk about the illusion of control. It's one of the most persistent traps in this human experience. We plan, we strategize, we analyze everything down to decimal points and probabilities. We grasp at certainty as if it were oxygen. But Watts reminds us what makes a game thrilling is not knowing how it ends. The beauty is in the unknown. The magic is in the risk. If the outcome were guaranteed, the game would be boring. So why do we treat life like a contract we're trying to negotiate safety from, instead of a mystery we're here to explore? Every time you try to lock life into a fixed outcome, you're freezing the dance. You're resisting the current. You're turning play into pressure. And that's when suffering begins. Not because life is cruel, but because you're gripping something that was never meant to be held. Life is not a puzzle to solve. Life is not a mountain to conquer. Life is a song. And the only thing that matters is, are you singing it? And here's where we drop into the deepest truth of all. The player you think you are, the you that's trying to beat the game, is itself part of the illusion. That voice in your head narrating your story, judging your every move, worrying about your future, regretting your past, it's not the real you. It's a mask, a role, a point of view the game is using to experience itself through contrast. But the real you, the one that's aware of the voice, aware of the role, aware of the game, that's consciousness. That's the player behind the player. That's the eternal. And when you realize that, fear starts to dissolve. Because how can you be afraid when you know you've never truly been at risk? How can you be anxious about the outcome when you are the field the outcome plays on? How can you die when you were never just this body, this name, this temporary avatar? This is what Watts meant when he said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You can't see what you truly are with the mind, because what you are is what sees. So what happens when you stop playing as the ego and start playing as the self? Everything changes. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop chasing and start radiating. You no longer perform, you express. You no longer seek approval, you exist in alignment. You become deeply, fearlessly present. And in that presence, you find your power. Not the power to control the game, but the power to play it with absolute freedom. And this is where the game becomes a service. Because once you stop living for yourself, once you stop trying to win at everyone else's expense, you start playing for something bigger. You start lifting others. You start creating beauty, not just for success, but because it's in your nature. You become the one who makes the game better for everyone. And that's the highest play, when your joy becomes contagious. When your peace becomes a mirror. When your presence wakes others up to their own. Alan Watts believed that enlightenment was not some distant mountaintop, it was the realization that you've been the mountain all along. You've been the game, the player, and the play. You've just been pretending not to know. And that's the cosmic joke. That's why Watts laughed so much. Because when you see it clearly, when you really get it, you can't help but laugh too. Not because life is silly, but because it's so outrageously beautiful in its design that it brings you to your knees. But don't mistake laughter for detachment. Real players care. They love deeply. They cry fully. They give their all to each moment. But they do it without clinging, without needing the moment to last. And that's what makes them powerful. They're not attached to outcomes, they're devoted to presence. They don't need to dominate the game, they are the game. And that's why they move through life like artists, like poets, like rivers. So what does it mean, practically, to live this way? It means you wake up each day not asking, how do I survive? But how do I play today? You stop grinding for the future and start aligning with the present. You meditate not to fix yourself, but to remember yourself. You create not to be praised, but because expression is your nature. You love not to be completed, but because you are complete, and love is what overflows. You stop comparing levels with other players, because everyone's path is unique. Everyone's karma is different. Everyone's game is tailored to their specific awakening. And when you realize that, you stop competing and start connecting. You stop judging and start understanding. You start seeing the divine behind every mask, even the masks that hurt you, because they too are playing their role. And when you forgive the mask, you free the soul behind it. This is the ultimate cheat code: compassion. And compassion for yourself, for others, for the ridiculousness of the human condition. Because let's be honest, we're all fumbling through this game. We all forget. We all fall asleep. We all take it too seriously. But that's part of the play. And the moment you can smile at your own forgetting, you've already remembered. And finally, know this: no one can play this game for you. No guru, no teacher, not even Alan Watts. They can point, they can show, but you must see. You must step into the arena. You must make the move, because this is your game, your dream, your awakening. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. So when the game gets hard, and it will, don't ask for an easier level. Ask for deeper awareness. Ask for more clarity. Ask, what is life teaching me through this? And then listen. Not to the noise, but to the silence beneath it, in the stillness, the pulse, the laughter of the universe echoing behind every challenge, whispering, remember. It's just a game.